Hey, I'm DJ Sixsmith. What's up? Welcome to the program. Annie Murphy's here with us.
Hi.
Schitt's Creek has come to an end. How are you?
A shell of a woman. I'm a shell of a woman. It left a very sizable hole in my life when we wrapped.
Yeah, when did you guys actually wrap? When was that final date?
We wrapped a year ago, over a year ago, like the end of June last year. But it was nice because, we did a bunch of touring and we still saw each other all the time. So it didn't quite feel as impactful as it would have otherwise. But yeah, since like the final episode aired and being obviously in lockdown and everything, it's been really hard not seeing everybody.
I'm glad you guys got it in before the pandemic too, because that really would have sucked if you hadn't been finished in the way you wanted to.
I know. I think about that all the time. Imagine if we'd been like, one more season, it would have been a nightmare. So it all finished as it should. And we were so lucky to be able to, Dan knew that it was going to be 6 seasons and out. And I feel like not a lot of shows get that opportunity to finish on their own terms. So yeah, bittersweet for sure.
Well, I think one of the great things about the show is it had this amazing backstory and even your backstory in terms of jumping on. So why don't we go back? Just explain to me and everybody else where you were at in your life prior to Schitt's Creek and what things were looking like for you.
Oh man. Well, life was pretty bleak for me at the time just before Schitt's Creek. I hadn't worked in almost 2 years. My apartment had just burnt down. I had basically no money in my bank account. And I'd been getting so close to like booking that job, but I never got the call. And so I was really kind of like aware that the universe was like, this isn't the job for you, move along, lady. And so I gave up. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is not for me. It's just like breaking me down. And literally the next day I got the audition for Schitt's Creek.
Wow.
And literally like a life-changing experience for me. So
that's really incredible. And it just goes to show the difference between being in this industry and rolling through and being on the outside and doing something completely different.
That's it. And now I'm, the advocate for never give up because, hindsight 2020,
Mm-hmm.
but you never know what's around the corner. Like a email can change your life and an audition can change your life. And so, yeah, I'm feeling very lucky.
And you never know how a show is going to be received either. And I think this show is the case study for it because it gets going and it's super funny and it has this audience and it's starting to build. So what were the early days like? Because obviously it's a big deal in Canada. You're starting with the shoestring budget. Like when does it start to become a bigger deal?
I think the answer is when we got added to Netflix in the States, it kind of blew up. But when we started out, it was this little show on CBC in Canada, and we shot in Toronto, and then we drive up to this little town called Goodwood, Ontario, appropriately named, and shoot there. So it felt like very insular and very small. But I think, Netflix aside, I think that the show kind of came along at the right time when people were feeling like they needed a place that they could go where everything is safe and kind and loving and accepting, when the world these days is, kind of the opposite of that most often. So yeah, I think the show kind of came along at just the right time, and that's why it's taken off. But it's so crazy to think about, like, we're like, oh yeah, maybe we'll get another season. Wouldn't that be nice? And then just to have it, have the show and all the people on it having accomplished such wonderful things. It's a really amazing place to end.
Yeah, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. And even with the show itself, it's like we're kind of obsessed with families who have a lot of money or the lifestyle of the rich and the famous. And like, this is the complete opposite of that when it peels back the layers and like you lose everything. So why do you think this resonated with people in terms of that fall from grace, from going from the peak to a much different looking life?
I don't know. I think, well, like schadenfreude, like watching, rejoicing in people's misery. You know, you're always like, when you're watching those shows, you're like, what if? Like, what if this happened to you? Like, how would you behave? And I think it's a really interesting kind of character study to think about that. But I think, you know, I think it was so wonderful to be able to see this family figure out how to be a family, and like siblings learn how to be siblings, and parents learn how to be parents at the not so tender age of, you know, 30 and 60. So I think that was appealing, like people just kind of figuring their shit out and learning, like just doing their best to get through the day. I think a lot of people can identify with that.
I mean, I would put Alexis Rose in that character study conversation just in terms of her arc, because it goes from starting out in a certain place and what she was focused on to the end of it, where she's a much different person. Her priorities are much different. So what was it like going on that journey as a character?
It was so awesome. It like truly was the role of a lifetime for me. And I feel so grateful to the writers that they let that character be so much more than just like a ditzy blonde. Mm-hmm. It was so much fun to play because, you know, everyone is so much more than just one thing. And there are so many different layers to everybody. And so to meet her at the beginning when she's so dependent on men and money and things, and then leave her this really independent person who's going off on her own with like a brain full of knowledge that she didn't have before, and having experienced love and having experienced friendship, I think for the first time ever. I'm really proud where she left off.
I think the other great thing too is that in addition to the journey that she went on, like all these characters go on their own specific journeys, but all the characters have like their own comedic moments as well, which I think makes this show unique. So what was it like just playing in that world? Because like you're going through this serious journey, but also you can get those one-liners in each and every episode.
I loved it so much. And like the physicality of it all was such a blast to play. And then having like two of the greatest teachers of all time and going into work every day and being schooled by Eugene and Catherine. Like I would give my firstborn child to have that experience. And I didn't have to. And it was just so incredible to watch them work, because even though they've been doing this for 45 years, and the joy that they get from doing their job is so infectious. And like they're such hard workers, they're such professionals, but then watching them still play and have fun and like give each other ideas. Catherine's always like, okay, how about we do this? Why don't we try it like this? And it gave me big time goals to be like them, all in every facet.
I hear you on that. So you alluded to it before. It's one thing for a show to be popular. It's another thing for a show to have like this massive following, and you're doing a tour and people are dressing up as the characters. Like, how does that whole thing start? And like, what is it like to even deal with that? Because that to me is just like mind bending in so many different ways.
It is like my mind is permanently bent by it, because the fans of the show are such diehard, like rabid fans, and they know the show better than any of us. Like they know it inside and out. And so yeah, to walk onto a stage in front of thousands of people who are dressed up as your characters and holding signs, and it really is surreal. I hate using that word, but it's like the only one I can use right now. And also the other thing that's so incredible about the fans of the show is that they've really formed a community with each other. And like people have met friends on opposite ends of the country, and they've come up and like they bonded, you know, in their own homes, and then come and met up at shows. And like, it's formed such a amazing community that's my favorite part of it all, I think.
I watched the behind the scenes thing that you guys did for that final season. It was cool because you had the moment to really appreciate what you've done and also to put a bow on this thing. So when you think about the final season, what stands out to you the most just about, culminating everything that you guys have been through?
I think the thing that stands out the most is just as like cheeseball answer, but it's the people that I got to become friends with, and like lifetime friends. I'm so lucky that I met all of these incredible people, and that's why the last scene that you see us in, that you see Dan and I in when we're waving goodbye to Johnny and Moira, like that's just Dan Levy and Annie Murphy having a cry. And that was the last scene that we shot ever. Wow. Yeah, so it was very significant, and yeah, I'm lucky in the sense that I only have to say goodbye to the characters and not the people playing the characters.
Yeah, no question about it. So you mentioned Eugene and Catherine before, but I think people found out just how talented Dan is in terms of what he does from a production standpoint, what he does in front of the camera as well. What stands out to you the most just about what you've learned from him and what he's able to do just in how he put this whole thing together?
Dan is one of the hardest working people I've ever met. Like he was never not working on the show, because when he would start with, the writer's room, and then he'd go into pre-production, and then we'd shoot, and then he'd go into editing, and then he'd start the writer's room again. So there was no downtime for him. And the fact that he is wearing so many hats, he's writing, he's producing, he's acting, he's show running, like it was truly extraordinary to watch. And he has such specific goals. Like things have to be at this level, and he demands that of everybody. And he hired an incredible group of people that were able to deliver at the level that he needed them to, and created this show. Like it has this show to show for that. So I'm very grateful to him.
And this show will always hold a special place in your heart. And the beauty of it is that who knows if you'll ever have another experience like this, but you can check that off the list. You still have plenty of room to go with your career. So what are the other things that you're interested in doing? Like what piques your interest post Schitt's Creek as we move forward here?
Well, I'm about to. I'm starting a new show when the world starts to fix itself on AMC. It's called Kevin Can Fuck Himself. Sorry for saying that. And I'm super excited about it. It goes between sitcom and single cam, so it's going to be fun to play both of those things. But I want to keep doing comedy as much as I can. But I'd love to go back and do theater again. Like I started doing theater, and haven't done it for years now. So I'd love to do that again, and do voice work and do indies, and I'm clearly thirsty for so answer is anything. I will do anything.
Well, that's the beauty of it, is that you can do theater, you can do an indie, you can do voiceover work. Like we're living in this golden age of television. So what does it mean to you that you can use your voice in all these different platforms, given everything going on in the world too right now?
It's so wonderful. And I think, another thing that I do want to do eventually is create a show of my own. And because it's so important, if you have a platform or not, to try and create something that means something that's important. And it doesn't have to be preachy. It doesn't have to be ramming a message down people's throats, but it should be something important to you. And I love kind of the veil of comedy and the ability that comedy gives you to sugarcoat things in a way that there's an important issue, but we can look at it through the lens of comedy. And I think that that's a real gift. So I want to try and keep doing that.
That's a great point, because I've thought a lot about this recently, and that's who are the people telling the stories. And when it came to Schitt's Creek, there were clearly people that were in the right position to tell certain stories. And even with David's relationship with Patrick, if that's a different storyteller, that looks a little bit different. So I think storytelling and the people who are behind the camera telling those stories really goes a long way. And I'm sure you've thought about that as we've gone along.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. And I think, you know, times are clearly changing. And though everything is absolutely a garbage fire right now, I think it's all changing for the good. And I so desperately hope that the voices that should have been heard for a very, very, very long time will finally be heard.
It's nice to have that moment, and I'm glad you're getting your moment and getting your shine here. Annie, thanks so much for jumping on. Best of luck, and we'll talk to you down the road, okay?
Thank you. Nice to meet you.